In this video, as we take apart the documentation for Blender 4.0, we are going to be looking at the tools for texture painting. If you like content like this, please help us to keep going by supporting the channel. To do so, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much for being here. In the last video, we talked about UV maps and texturing them. Let's switch to the texture painting workspace for the sake of convenience. Remember, you could just switch the mode. Now let's go to texture slots, and with mode being on materials, click the plus icon, and let's create a base color texture that we can paint on. Let's use a dark color for these demonstrations. Looking at the toolbar over here on the left, we will start with the draw brush. This brush paints with a swath of color. If you have any kind of tablet with pressure sensitivity, you can paint varying lines or opacity here directly onto the texture. You can change the properties of the brush in the texture properties. Next, we have the Soften tool. This uses a blur effect to soften or sharpen the image. If we go to the advanced sections of the properties, we can set the direction to either soften or sharpen. It is used to paint a blur effect. We can also change the threshold, which is essentially how much it will sharpen or soften the image. Then we have the kernel radius, which is for 2D images only. This controls the blur radius in pixels. It determines how big an area the tool searches over while calculating the blur effect. A larger kernel radius will result in a more extensive blur. And we can change the blur mode, and we can set it to either Gaussian blurring, which will sample the pixels near the center of the brush most, or box blur, which samples all surrounding pixels equally. Then we have the Smear tool. When you click, it takes the colors under the cursor and blends them in the direction you move the mouse, similar to the Smudge tool of GIMP or Photoshop, if you have used it. Next, we have the Clone tool. This copies the colors from the specified image or location of the same image to the active image. In 3D projective painting, the clone cursor can be set with Control, plus the left mouse button. In 2D painting, the clone can be moved, dragging it with the right mouse button. Unfortunately, this tool does not work like the clone tool in other editing software like GIMP or Photoshop while in 2D. It's more like a transfer of an image. But before we do that, we have to add the image to the texture slot. Go back over to the texture slot, click Single Image, and open your image of choice. Don't forget to switch the texture back. Now we can clone our image to the current one. You could have done this with other maps as well. Let's click on Advanced and add the image, and we can also adjust the alpha here to make it easier to see. You can simply place the image over your UV map and simply brush over a section that you would like to transfer. In the 3D viewer, you can actually clone a section of your mesh by moving the cursor with Control and the left mouse button. And next we have the Fill tool. It can be used to fill large areas of the image with the brush color. The tool fills adjacent pixels that have a color value similar to the pixel you clicked on. To use it in 2D, if you have intricate patterns, you will need to turn the fill threshold up. If it is too low, it looks for pixels that are very similar, and you may run into issues. We can also fill with a gradient. The gradient type of the color picker allows the use of a gradient to fill the image. To apply the gradient with the fill brush, click the left mouse button and drag to define the gradient line, or radius, if a radial gradient is used, depending on the gradient fill mode. There are two options here, which are linear and radial. And lastly, we have the Mask tool. This brush paints grayscale values on the mask texture specified in the mask panel. Any masked surfaces will not be affected by other paintbrushes. This is similar to sculpt mode masking. We can adjust the mask value, and this is the mask weight, of which a value of 0 means not masked, while 1 is completely masked. Hold Control to invert the painted mask value, and that will do it for this video. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for making it all the way through the video. Please join us in the next one. See you next time.